Welcome back to Critical Moment. This is the very crucial part. You are going to learn from the very person. Your critical moment, Nick.
Critical moment. This is a difficult one. You know, I think the critical moment is happening a lot, many times. I can't think of one critical moment.
So your life is full of critical moments.
I think so, and not only this one. This is a critical moment. But you know, there's a saying in Good to Great. Jim Collins talks about the flywheel effect. Okay, so what it means is when you're growing a business, it's just that there's not one. The greatest businesses, there's not one critical moment. It's a succession of small pushes, and eventually what happens is the flywheel starts getting its own momentum and goes faster and faster and faster and faster and faster. So I just think,
and then you got used to it.
And then you just got to hang on. But I think the critical moment then is every moment of, almost every moment of the day. There's a number of critical moments. But in training, it's the same. You know, you think about it, imagine some people hate presentations, right? They're scared of presentations.
Right.
Worse than death, according to one study. And so, you know, think of training that often I'm dealing with groups of, usually the groups of 20, but I've dealt with groups as much as 500.
Oh dear, at the same time, at one time.
At one time. So it means the training's got to be really, really good.
Now that sounds really critical. How do you handle the 500 or so participants? That would be highly critical.
Well, with a lot of help from my team and also with really, really good choreography. So the training, first of all, it's not about the performance so much as about having the training set up in the first place effectively.
Right.
But there's always critical moments where the training doesn't quite come off as one expects.
And what do you do? That's what I want to find out.
So what you've got to do is you've got to improvise, right? And so I always make sure that when I do training, I've always got two other options to draw on. So if something doesn't quite flow or doesn't quite work, I can call on the other option and people won't even notice it. So it looks like it's part of the act.
So does that mean that you have to plan ahead, or you had the ability to think on your feet?
It's really is both. So the planning gives you more time to think on your feet. So, and the more time you have to think on your feet, the better the response is going to be. The worst thing is when you're under pressure and facing that's when a critical moment becomes a crisis moment.
Right.
And that's not good. So the thing is that I think the lesson is in training, I'm always going to face critical moments. And it's about being prepared so that they don't become crisis moments and to be able to deal with them. It's just totally natural.
How do you handle that kind of moment? Are there plan 2 or plan B that you have thought about in order to have this person to probe, to talk back to you?
That's a really challenging thing for a trainer, because a trainer needs to use his or her judgment in that situation. But generally, if the hijack has been done well, what happens is that there's a lot of dendeng, excitement that I draw on, and then that generally lowers the guard.
Yes.
So people feel more relaxed and feel more comfortable to share their ideas. Now, it's true, I will get introverts and I'll get risk-averse people in training as well. And in some organizations, it may take a lot of time to work through that.
Yes.
So what I try to do is I try to put the person in a situation where they are. So for example, one I did recently, The Bourne, there's a movie in America, many people are probably aware of it, The Bourne Supremacy, The Bourne Ultimatum.
And The Bourne Legacy recently.
And The Bourne Legacy recently, haven't
Right.
seen it yet. But you know, one of the ways in Asia you can get round this risk aversion and fear is to make someone into a character in that, so that they are not themselves. That gives them license to give an answer that isn't from them. So they're acting. And Thais love acting, and so does, Lagon drama is very popular in Thailand. So it just comes very naturally then. So one way or the other, I'm going to get them.
Oh, right. So you have them role play a particular character in a movie and have them be themselves in such a way that you want to have them present.
Right. And if they still don't communicate, or they're still sort of not going to actually speak out, then
you choke them.
then I blame them for poor acting.
Oh.
That's okay, by the way.
Okay.
You're not a very good actor. That's how like this. Oh, that's terrible. Oh, I'm really a good actor.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, oh no. So you can use another thing. People working in the Thai culture, but also in the Asian culture, there's a lot more you can do to push people. Than meets the eye. Normally everyone's saying, oh, you've got to be careful in Thailand, you don't want to push them too hard, they're going to lose face, or they're going to do this or do that. Really, you can push a lot harder than a lot of people can sing. And one of the great ways of doing that is to actually not just to role play, but make the person into someone else. You are Jason Bourne, you are Pamela Landy, example, okay? And it makes it really real and present so that they forget themselves.
Wow.
And so that's another way of getting them to speak out. But it is a challenge, and it's one that all the time I have to think about, and it can become a critical moment, during training. So I've always got to make sure there's some activity that I can use to break that ice.
So throughout your training, the critical moment is to get people to participate. And if one way doesn't work out, then you have plan B. And what you see as workable, the best is basically role play. Have them act it out.
Well,
go beyond themselves, expand their limits.
Right, and another way is to put them into teams where suddenly they have to, if they're not going to respond to myself, then they have to respond to their team colleagues. And one way of doing that is to create a simulation where, say, for example, they're building a house. So each one you have a supply chain, for example.
Yeah.
This is all different from different training activities, but one person is putting the walls on, another one is doing the decoration, another one is doing the roof, another one is doing the panels of the roof, another one is putting the flag on top.
Yes.
So when you have an activity like this, a simulation, and their time, then they're competing with other teams and there's money at stake.
Yes.
Then one way or the other they're going to communicate. If they don't communicate, epic fail. The critical moment is then their critical moment. So I give them the critical moment back.
Yeah. Well, I see you brought some house with you.
Oh yes. Yeah. Well, this isn't something that would probably make it into.
Is this part of the simulation that you were talking about?
Yeah, this probably people are looking at this and wondering. Yes, please do. Okay, careful not to break it, because obviously it's not a work of art.
Oh wow, this is a house which was given to you by a group of people.
That's right.
Who were doing what kind of training this is?
Okay, this is leadership, and this is really to getting one of the practices we were working on is enabling others to act. So what they had to do is they had to form companies and form team roles.
Right.
And each of these roles were actually split apart. So some people can look at this and say, well, that's a very poorly constructed house.
These are the role.
These are the walls here.
Yeah.
So two people were responsible for putting the walls together.
Yes.
And then another two people had to mount the walls level by level.
And I noticed that the walls have different colors.
They do have colours, and another group were responsible for the colouring and the panels, etc. The idea here wasn't to build a beautiful house, but the idea here was to create lots of houses based on a simple spec and see which teams could create the most houses to a very, very basic quality requirement. And the team that did, obviously they've enabled others to act more effectively. So they've got people in the right roles, they've got a process set up, they've basically gone into business in this training.
Like for example with this, how many roles have you specified? And each role pretty much play their own role and not deviating to other place.
That's really important. So so what we're doing in this training, in this simulation of the training, is to make a mini model of a real company. So at work. So at work, you have people in different roles.
Right.
So you're not having, the accountant isn't doing the marketing typically.
No way.
And the process engineer
We don't want accounting to do marketing.
They do it in some companies.
Yeah, and?
So this activity basically splits them into 9 different roles, and they're not allowed to do other people's roles. So it really puts the emphasis on them understanding how they can work more effectively as a team, where you have the division of labor.
And then at the end, you probably assign a quality control person who inspect the house.
Yes, I think the quality control person probably
Is this passed?
This is probably a rejected one. That's why it gets to me.
I see. And then the quality control person will have to indicate why he or she rejected this house.
Right, right.
And that's part of the presentation that one has to acquire knowingly or unknowingly.
Yes, that's correct. So, you know, the point is here is this is just a very small example, and there are many, many other simulations.
Did the participant think that they are doing something crazy or wacky? Building a house? Come on, I am an executive here.
They didn't expect it. In fact, I themed it to The Apprentice, so Donald Trump. So the theme is also very important, the music playing in the background, and when you get the theme and the music playing, I tell you, and you put them into teams and they're competing, I tell you, nothing's going to stop them. They're not going to think anything's crazy. They just want to win.
So you build the emotion with the sound, with the picture, with
there's
everything.
timing, so they've got 5-minute shifts. So there's time pressure. You know, there's the fear of the Donald saying, "You're fired."
Yeah. That's
so
fun.
it's very real, right?
Yeah.
But the point is, it's fun, but I think most people can see how that relates to real business reality. And that's a great way of getting them really to rethink. And then, you know, one of the activities they have to do after this is to work out, you know, how are they going to use this lesson in their workplace. So what can they get from it, and how can they change some elements in the workplace to enable others to act more easily.
So it's not just ending with building a house, but applying it to your workplace as well.
Absolutely. And you know, the concept of a game, right? I know you're a game show host before, but the game actually goes back to ancient Egypt, and it's a fundamental way of motivating people. So, you know, just because something is a game doesn't mean we can't learn from it, and we can't use it to help understand a lesson and to act on it. So, you know, the game and the activity is a really useful tool to make the training very universal.
Well, you see, everything, every day you can learn. Learn from the game, learn from talking to this chap, and learn much more. Stay tuned.